Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night we talked about recovery, arrest a banker. And it's really simple. It's not bad luck what the economy is going through now. It is a racket. A bunch of con men, a very small number of con men, have conned us out of our country, out of our money, out of our jobs, out of our homes, out of all that we own. They have conned us. They're thieves, they're crooks, they're liars. And they're petty con men too. They're not sophisticated like you see in the movies. They're basically thugs. And they're thugs who've gotten their positions in this life because of who their mommy and daddy were. Just like their mommies and daddies got their positions in life because who their mommies and daddies were. It's a family business. It's a family of petty thugs. And when you see the Queen of England or Obama or Bernanke on camera and they look, very well dressed and very well presented, at home, when there are no cameras, they're brutish, drunken, petty, ugly thugs. It's really simple. None of this is complicated. Honestly, none of this is hard. So, since they are nothing but petty crooks, what they used to call racketeers, we have something that our brutish, petty thug masters created called the RICO Act. The RICO Act was a law that our masters passed, junior management. They passed this law so they could help destroy you and me and anybody who was fighting them. The RICO Act was, well, we have no proof, we have no evidence that you're a criminal, but we think you are. And just because we think you are, we're going to seize your bank accounts, we're going to take your home, we're going to take your cars, we're going to take your jewelry. We're going to seize everything that you own because we have decided that you're a criminal. And we're going to take that money and give it to the government. Of course, the government is nothing but criminals themselves. But the RICO Act still exists in the United States. I don't know what you have in Israel or the UK. It's up to you to decide. But in the United States, we can do something legal and something real with the RICO Act. The RICO Act was like all of the laws our masters passed. It's a joke. It's a criminal offense against the Constitution. But in this case, it works for us because we can use the RICO Act against our politicians, against our corporate owners, against junior management. The Clintons, the Bushes, the Bernankes, Henry Kissinger, Madeleine Albright, all of these petty crooks and thugs. We can do a citizen's arrest. You and a million of your closest personal friends, all with guns, doing no violence unless you're attacked. You only use your weapons to defend. You never, ever attack. Never. Because that's what our masters want. And since they're unbelievable cowards, they're prepared to run. But we can use the RICO Act to get our money back. While these criminals are on trial, under the Constitution, there are provisions for how you would do a citizen's arrest. Under the Constitution, we are required by law to defend ourselves, our neighbors, our countries against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And in today's criminal society known as the United States of America Incorporated, even mentioning the Constitution makes you a terrorist. So the funny thing is, if any of this can be funny, carrying a gun in plain sight, which is your right under the law, that's legal. But carrying a copy of the Constitution is illegal. Carrying a gun in plain sight just makes you a U.S. citizen. Carrying a copy of the U.S. Constitution makes you a terrorist. This gets us back to up is down, Left is right. Yes is no. War is peace. A very smart fellow by the name of Orwell wrote about this many years ago in something called a book called 1984. The first thing you have to do to take control of a government is stop educating the people. Amongst the other things you do is you change the meaning of words. Because words have power over us. Words have power over the universe. So you change the meaning of words. But the reality is, under the RICO Act, this illegal law, we can take our money back from all of these criminals, and you know who they are. We arrest them. We get our money back. We hire ourselves from the money that we have seized from these criminals, our money. So you and a million of your friends who marched on Washington, D.C., who marched on Wall Street, who marched on the Pentagon, who marched on the CIA, the NSA, Echelon, the IRS, the Federal Reserve Bank. Well, you need salaries. You need expenses covered. You need all this money back. And the moment you're making a salary, hey, you can buy groceries. You can pay your rent. You can buy gas. And the money is back in circulation. It's not hard. It's not difficult. We take our money back. Means we take our country back. We take our world back. We take our lives back. And we give ourselves a future. And, whether it's a dead brown dwarf star or an ice age or a biblical flood, at least we'll then face it, standing on our own 2 feet, as men and as women, and not groveling on our knees to creatures, to thugs, to bullies, to liars, to parasites. And that's all our masters are. That's all our great leaders are in the Western world, parasites. We don't need them. But they desperately need us. Like a disease needs something to feed on. It's your decision. It's up to you. You have to decide. And so tonight I thought we would chat about the Mayan 2012 reboot. And everybody talks about this, and it's, all kinds of debate is going on. And the only things that come to mind when I think about the 2012, the end of a cycle of time, let's say, the end of a calendar. A couple of things come to mind. Whether they're true or not, I have no idea. I'm just thinking out loud. We're having a talk. We're having a cup of coffee. We're chatting. You and I chatted about Betelgeuse a couple of nights ago, and how, if memory serves, Betelgeuse is 524 light years away from us, which means the light that we see from Betelgeuse is 524 years old. And Betelgeuse, theoretically, the story goes, the fairy tale goes on, that the elder race, the giants, who may or may not have been here helping us. There were giants here, but little ones, 14-footers. I'm talking about 100-foot giants. I'm talking about, wow, Jack and the Beanstalk stuff. I'm talking about somebody you would notice at Kmart. They went, the elder race, the giants, went and fought the ancient old ones, the enemy. The first creatures, I think, that Satan, Yahweh, created in her bid to become God, in this tiff she's having with her lover, God, Amalek. And the fairy tale goes that the elder race, the giants, defeated the ancient old ones, who were basically the titans from Greek mythology, diseases miles wide, mindless, vicious, horrifying things. They imprisoned them in a star called Betelgeuse. They couldn't get rid of them because their God created, Satan created them herself. So they couldn't destroy them, but they could imprison them. And I bring that up because if Betelgeuse, and again another debate you saw on the internet and then was violently put down by the mass Western media, Betelgeuse exploded. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. Who cares? It's something an astronomer should argue about. What do we care? We would care if those fairy tales were true. And if indeed Betelgeuse exploded 524 years ago, and if indeed the ancient old ones got out, it means that the civilized races of our galaxy and that part of it have been at war now for 524 years. And it's right about now the war would be reaching us. You know, and it absolutely, totally brings me no joy, no interest, no excitement to even say these things out loud. I truly wish all of this would just go away. Maybe I'm in a coma and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and this was just a really bad dream, and I would frankly just be delighted. Maybe I've been drunk for 50 years. I don't know. I just wish this would all stop. But honestly, I see no sign of it stopping. It just continues to escalate. But what I do see is junior management, our masters, have their backs up against the wall right now because they are in a horrifying panic to subdue you and me, enslave us, kill as many of us as they can, crush us. They're in the midst of doing things or trying to do things to us that you and I have never even spoken about. But they are ramping up their efforts to kill as many of us as they can. And again, this always puzzled me because they know, even morons as they are, they even know now that a dead brown dwarf star is on its way. I mean, goodness gracious, CNN, their mouthpiece, along with Fox News, actually reported a dead brown dwarf star outside of the orbit of Pluto. This was on television, for God's sake. And this is the mouthpiece organizations of our masters. So even these morons, these slack-jawed, mouth-breathing idiots we call politicians and corporate management, are great leaders. Even they know something's going on. And they're terrified out of their minds. So if they know the dead brown dwarf star is coming, why are they in a panic to kill you and me? To torture us to death? Because they have to hurt us before they kill us. Because there's no fun simply to kill someone. You have to make them suffer first. I've seen this firsthand, unfortunately. Because whatever's coming, they know that all of a sudden you and I will go from being cattle to being self-aware, free-thinking human beings. 7 billion of us against a very small handful of them. 3 guesses what we'll do to them once we wake up. I advocate following the Constitution. Don't return hate for hate. I've seen what happens when you do that. It's not religion, it's physics. Don't become them. Do what's necessary, do what the law says. The Constitution, nothing else. You know, now you could actually also talk to a scientist. But after 5 years at NASA, I can tell you that my friends there who became family, after 5 years. Again, the number 98% comes to mind. 98% of my friends who were scientists, astronomers at NASA, had the most closed minds I'd ever encountered in people. And scientists have a closed mind for a very, very, very good reason. There's only one place a scientist can work and make a living: the government. Either directly for the government or through grants to universities or corporations, especially astronomers. There's not a lot of call for astronomers over at the Target or at the McDonald's. So scientists have to follow the party line. And I saw a lot of drinking at NASA. Until I got to New Zealand, I didn't think that people could drink that much and survive. But scientists have the most closed minds I've ever met. But since I was family after a few years, I could ask questions. I knew who to ask. And they would tell me the truth. But they would always say at the end, "You never heard this from me. we never had this conversation. And I learned some really incredible things that someday we're going to have to segue into some of our conversations with you and I, especially about the moon. But you can try to talk to a scientist, but they can't talk in public, and since if they don't know you, they don't know who you are, they're not going to tell you the truth either. So we're sort of stuck, you and I. And it gets back to, I listen to what you say, I watch what you do. Listen to what our masters say and then watch what they do. That's all I can suggest. I'd also suggest you stop eating poison and give your body a chance to clear out so your mind will begin to work again. But it's up to you. Which gets us to the Mayan 2012 reboot. You and I have talked in the past about, where are we actually living? Are we inside of a educational virtual reality program? You and I are 19 years old. We're at university. Our parents have spent a lot of money for us to get the best education they can afford. So, you and I, 19 years old, we go to class. Class consists of lying on a couch, having a headset put on us, and plugs us into a virtual reality environment where we live an entire lifespan. We're born, we live, we die. Let's say you and I have signed up for North American Studies with a minor in American English. And so for 50, 60, 70, 90 years, you and I live this virtual life in a virtual world. Whether or not the program has gone bad or not, we've talked about that. So you and I are in a virtual world, and we live an entire lifetime in a couple of hours. You and I are going to wake up from this virtual reality program when we die here, go back and we're 19 years old. Not even a day has passed. We're now, have some soup to recover, then we're going to go out and party with our friends because, hey, we just got our degree. We passed the course, we hope, because God knows I don't want to do this again. So if we're inside of a virtual reality educational program, maybe where you and I now are lesson 1. And lesson 1 ends, according to the program, in 2012, at which point lesson 2 begins. But there's no information on lesson 2 because the virtual reality program has to take all of our actions, or more specifically our reactions to what's been done to us here, into account, and then decides what lesson 2 is really going to be. What's the next step in the educational program that you and I have signed up for, and our parents have paid a lot of money for. So, 2012, according to the Mayans, well, that's the end of their calendar. It's the end of lesson 1. We have no idea what lesson 2 is because we haven't gotten there yet, and the computer we're inside of hasn't decided what the next lesson plan is, because it's all based on our reactions, yours and mine. You and I are not judged by what's done to us. We're judged by how we react to what is done to us. For example, this one's kind of hard for me to talk about. People you love are killed by a drunk driver, and your life ends because they're gone. You weren't in the car, you wish you were. But they're dead, you're alive. How are you going to react to that? Are you going to go out and start shooting drunk drivers in the head? Are you yourself going to become a drunk driver and hope that you die, or kill somebody to get even with the world? Or are you going to join Mothers Against Drunk Drivers and try to outlaw drunk drivers and put them in jail and leave them there? You're not judged by what's done to you. You're judged by how you react to what is done to you. And that's where lesson 2 comes in. So 2012, lesson 2 begins. What is it? Haven't a clue. Machine hasn't decided yet. You and I have also talked about the possibility that you and I are inside of a 3D holographic box. There's another fairy tale we've talked about, another fantasy, where you and I are the survivors of a civilization that was destroyed. in war. And we're just escaping. We're all that's left. So, our very bright scientist took a 3D holographic photograph of the universe. Took a snapshot. Click. You've now got a 3D photograph of what the universe is. But it's not real. It's all there. All the information's there. But it's static. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't grow. It doesn't change. But it can do one thing. It can preserve you and I, which means that you and I are existing right here, right now, inside of a 3D holographic box, and all you and I are particles of light inside of this holographic box. We are our soul, if you will, and I hate these terms because I am not religious. I'm a realist. I have no interest at all in religion, but I'm trying to think of words that we will both understand. So if you and I are actually survivors of a Holocaust, and our scientists have preserved the essence of who you and I are, we've been reduced to particles of light. And we're living inside of a holographic box, a snapshot of the universe. And it only has one function: to keep us alive. We don't grow, we don't evolve, we don't get better, we don't improve, because the program has limited space on the hard drive. So the end of the Mayan calendar, 2012, means the program reboots. All of the memories that you and I have accumulated in our life here is erased, deleted. Only the core program, you and me, particles of light, survive. So in order to keep us, quote-unquote, sane, it's not doing much for me, we're going to live the entire program again. Exactly the same. No changes, nothing alters. Except for the fact, I think, if this is the scenario that actually is real, I think that the erasure of our memories from the previous plane of the program is not complete. That's where deja vu comes in. I've done this before. I know you were going to say that. That sort of thing comes in. Because we're living the same program, the same event, over and over and over again. Until whatever ship we're on arrives, wherever it's going, and you and me, as particles of light, they created new bodies for us, and we're back in the real universe again. We could have lived this same exact identical life a million times. And any of us who know anything about computers know there's various levels of erasure possible for your computer. There's a standard erase. Okay, I'm just going to erase this file. Okay, it's gone. You know what? It really isn't. Because your computer, your PC, has the ability to save information even though you think it's erased. And for those of us who know how, we can actually restore files that you think have been deleted on your computer. They haven't been. So it really depends on the level of erasure we're talking about in this 3D holographic box. There's something called government level wipe, government level erasure, which clears all of your files completely. They really are gone from your hard drive at that point, but most people don't bother with that. This is the scenario that scares me the most. You and I cannot evolve, we can't grow, we can't be anything other than reliving the same story over and over and over again. It's the same as watching your favorite TV shows over and over and over for year after year after year. You look at the actors and they're doing the same thing they did last year, that they did the year before, that they did the year before, that they did the year before. They're locked in this cycle. They can't say anything different. They dress the same, they're in the same places, they're telling the same jokes. Why? Because it's the program they're locked in. And if that's what's happening to you and me, that's not a pretty concept. That's kind of a grim thought. I just hope the ship arrives wherever it's going. So maybe the 2012 reboot simply starts this particular TV show again. And we say the same funny lines, and we do the same silly things over and over and over. But in the back of our minds, you think to yourself, I've done this before. The other possibility for the 2012 reboot is that this really is the real world. We're in the real universe. Everything is real. And somebody, much bigger than us, is using us as lab rats, putting us in a maze and seeing which way we'll turn left or right. Will we take the cheese or not? Will we spring the trap or not? And the 2012 reboot, I call, might be something as simple as corporate decision. In a corporation, the answer would be, hey, that's not my department. Hey, I was only hired to do 2012, okay? Whoever does 2013 and beyond, that's someone else's department. That comes out of somebody else's budget. This is not coming out of my budget, not my problem. Or maybe they just didn't know what was going to happen. Maybe all of their calculations were geared for this cycle of time, and they just honestly didn't know. Because you and I, if this is the real universe, you and I create the universe simply by existing. We create the universe simply by talking, which is why I'm talking to you. I'm hoping we can, just you and me talking, we can recreate the universe and make it a, well, frankly, a better place. So maybe they just didn't know. Or corporate answer, hey, that's not coming out of my budget. Get somebody else to do it. Not my problem. But it would be nice if this cycle of time, the 2012 reboot, whatever the next cycle of time is, wouldn't it be nice if you and I can make the decision of what it's going to be, what the next cycle of time will be, because it could be anything. But again, everything comes down to you and me. What are you going to decide to do? What are you going to do for yourself, your family, your city, your state, your country, your world, your brothers and sisters? What are you going to do? Nothing? Well, I'm pretty much guessing then the bad guys win. And the next cycle of time is going to be really, really grim. Or you could simply say no to our masters, at which point they're stuck. Or you could simply turn your backs on our masters and walk away. Or you and a million of your closest personal friends could put them in jail, get our money back, and the next cycle of time, 2013, will be a breath of, oh, thank God that's over with. Okay, we got a dead brown dwarf star to deal with, and an ice age and a flood, but you know what? Now we're free. We're clear. I can think for myself. I can see the world for what it really is. I can face it now. As a man, as a woman, I can face it standing on my own 2 feet and not groveling on my knees in the mud to a bunch of psychopaths. Every day I learn a little more about who I am. Not who I was supposed to be, of course, because he's dead. The CIA killed him. Not who nature meant me to be, because he's dead. The CIA killed him. Not who I wanted to be, because, well, the CIA killed him. But who I really am. I haven't a clue who that is. But the ancient Celts left us with a dream. They left us the Brean laws. They left us with the idea that yes, you can, or more specifically, I am. I am that I am. I am myself. I am no one else. I own myself. I am sovereign unto me. I own my own life. No one owns me. And they said it very beautifully. May you live as long as you wish. May you love as long as you live. For the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel fighting his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race. Their black magic captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.